I thought my family was too broke to celebrate Christmas. Until I discovered the truth on my sister's live stream. My name is Sophia, and for 26 years I believed I was part of a struggling family that simply couldn't afford the luxuries other families enjoyed. Christmas morning 2023 taught me everything I knew about my place in this family was a carefully constructed lie. But let me take you back to where this story really begins, my childhood, where the pattern of being left out was established so subtly, I didn't even realise it was happening. I was 8 years old, the first time I noticed something was off. It was my birthday in March, and while my older sister Jessica had gotten a pool party with all her friends just 2 months earlier, my parents sat me down with serious faces. Sophia, honey, we're going through a really tough time financially right now, Mum explained, her voice heavy with what I thought was genuine concern. We can't do a big party this year, but we'll make it special just for family, okay? I nodded, trying to be the understanding daughter I thought they needed. It's okay, Mum. I don't need a big party. Dad patted my head with what felt like relief. That's my girl, always so mature for your age. So instead of a party, we had dinner at home. Just me, Mom, Dad, and Jessica. No friends, no decorations, no cake from the bakery like Jessica had gotten. Just a box cake mix and a quiet dinner where Jessica complained about being bored the entire time. 2 weeks later, I found out through a classmate that my parents had taken Jessica and my older brother, Marcus, to Disney World that same weekend, telling everyone they were celebrating Jessica's excellent report card. When I asked Mum about it, she looked genuinely confused. Oh, sweetie, that wasn't a celebration. That was work-related. Dad had a conference nearby. The explanation felt hollow, even to my 8-year-old mind, but I accepted it because what choice did I have? This became the pattern of my childhood. Every birthday was not a good time financially. Every achievement I made was acknowledged with a pat on the head and a promise that next time we'll celebrate properly. Meanwhile, Jessica's dance recitals got professional photography sessions, and Marcus's baseball games had the whole extended family cheering in matching t-shirts. I learned to be grateful for scraps. When Jessica outgrew her clothes, I got excited about the hand-me-downs. When Marcus decided he didn't want his bicycle anymore, I acted like getting his cast off was the best gift in the world. I convinced myself that being easygoing and understanding was my role in the family. The Christmas pattern started when I was 10. That year, Mum and Dad sat all 3 of us down in November with grave expressions. Kids, this year's going to be different, Dad announced. The economy is really tough and we've had some unexpected expenses. Christmas is going to be much simpler this year. Simple, it turned out, meant no tree, no decorations, and gifts that came from the clearance section of drugstores, and only for Jessica and Marcus. I got a pack of generic coloured pencils and a colouring book clearly meant for someone much younger. We'll make it up to you next year, sweetheart, Mum promised as I tried to hide my disappointment. This is just temporary. But next year came with the same speech. And the year after that. By the time I was 15, I'd stopped expecting anything different. Christmas at the Thompson house meant I'd help Mom cook dinner, clean up afterward, and watch my siblings open gifts, while I got practical items like socks or school supplies. I told myself it was because I was the youngest, or because I was easier to please, or because I didn't ask for much. The truth I couldn't see then was that they'd trained me not to ask for much by making me feel guilty every time I expressed a want or need. The breaking point of my childhood came during my senior year of high school. I'd been working part-time at a local grocery store for 2 years, saving every penny for college, since my parents had made it clear that funding my education wasn't in their budget. "You're so responsible, Sophia," Dad would say approvingly, "learning the value of hard work early." Meanwhile, Jessica's college tuition was paid in full by our parents, and Marcus had a car bought for him the day he got his license. When I asked about getting help with even just textbooks, Mum looked at me like I'd asked for the moon. "Honey, you know we can't afford that right now. Besides, you're doing so well managing on your own. We don't want to make you dependent on us like your siblings." The gaslighting was so subtle, so consistent, that I actually felt proud of being independent while my siblings were spoiled. I graduated valedictorian and paid my own way through community college, working 2 jobs while Jessica partied her way through expensive private university on Mom and Dad's dime. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly they'd manipulated me. They'd convinced me that being ignored was actually special treatment, that being forced to be self-sufficient was a gift they were giving me. They'd made me grateful for neglect. Fast forward to this past December. At 26, I'd built a successful career in digital marketing, owned my own small apartment, and had finally started to feel like I'd found my footing in life. I'd even begun to think that maybe the family dynamics had just been about money, and now that everyone was adults, things might be different. That's why, when Thanksgiving came around and Mum mentioned how tight things were financially, I didn't hesitate to offer help. "I could contribute to Christmas dinner this year," I suggested during our brief phone call. "Maybe help with gifts for the kids." Jessica now had 2 children, and Marcus had recently gotten engaged. "Oh, Sophia, that's so sweet of you," Mum said, and for a moment I thought I heard genuine warmth in her voice. "But we couldn't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering. I've been doing really well with work, and I'd love to help make Christmas special for everyone." There was a pause, then Dad's voice in the background. Mum came back on the line. "Actually, honey, we've been talking and we think it might be better if we just skip the big family Christmas this year. Money's really tight for everyone, and we don't want anyone to feel pressured to spend what they don't have." Something in her tone made me pause, but I pushed the feeling aside. "Are you sure? I really wouldn't mind helping out." No, we've decided. Let's just keep it simple this year. Maybe we'll all get together for a quiet dinner, nothing fancy." I spent the next 3 weeks shopping carefully, finding thoughtful but budget-friendly gifts for everyone. I bought ingredients to make Mum's favourite dessert from scratch. I even found vintage ornaments at a thrift store that I thought would look beautiful on whatever modest tree they decided to get. December 23rd, I called to confirm what time I should come over on Christmas Day. "Oh, sweetheart," Mum's voice was strained. "We've decided to make it even simpler than we thought." Why don't we just plan to get together after the New Year instead? Give everyone time to recover from the holidays. My heart sank, but I tried to keep my voice cheerful. "What about Christmas dinner? I already bought all the ingredients for the pumpkin cheesecake you love." "That's so thoughtful, but really, we're just going to keep it very low-key this year, just immediate family, very simple." Immediate family. The phrase hit me like a slap, but I didn't understand why yet. "Mum, I am immediate family." Another pause. "Of course you are, honey. I just meant, well, you know how it is. Jessica's got the kids, and they're at that age where Christmas is so magical. And Marcus and Sarah are dealing with wedding planning stress. We thought it might be easier to just keep it to the people who are here locally." I lived 30 minutes away. Jessica lived an hour away. Marcus lived 45 minutes away, but somehow I was the one who was too far. I understand, I heard myself say, though I didn't understand at all. Maybe I can stop by later in the week. Sure, honey, that sounds perfect. So Christmas Eve, I sat in my apartment with a refrigerator full of ingredients for dishes no one would eat, and gifts wrapped for people who wouldn't receive them. I told myself it was fine, I was an adult, I could make my own Christmas. Christmas morning, I woke up to complete silence. No phone calls, no text messages, no acknowledgement that it was Christmas Day at all. I made myself breakfast and tried to pretend it felt festive to eat pancakes alone while watching a movie I'd seen a dozen times. Around noon, I decided to treat myself to a nice dinner. I'd order something special, open a bottle of wine I'd been saving and make the best of it. Maybe I'd video call some college friends later. I was just about to place an order from my favourite Italian restaurant when my phone buzzed with a notification. Jessica had gone live on Instagram. I almost didn't click on it. Jessica's Instagram lives were usually just her showing off her latest purchases or complaining about mom life. But something made me tap the notification. The screen filled with warm golden light, laughter, and the sound of Christmas music. Jessica's face appeared, flushed and happy, a glass of champagne in her hand. "Oh my God, you guys, Mum has really outdone herself this year," she was saying to her followers. The camera panned around, and my breath caught in my throat. The living room, my childhood living room, was transformed. A massive Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with what looked like hundreds of professional ornaments and warm white lights. Garland draped every surface. And there were more wrapped presents under that tree than I'd seen in my entire childhood combined. "Look at this spread," Jessica continued, flipping the camera to show the dining room. The table was set for 8 people, with Mom's good china, the kind she'd always said was too delicate for regular family dinners. In the centre was a feast that looked like something from a magazine: prime rib, lobster tails, multiple side dishes I could see steaming in elegant serving bowls. "Sarah helped Mum cook all day yesterday," Jessica narrated, "and Marcus surprised everyone with this amazing wine collection he's been saving for a special occasion." The camera caught glimpses of my family throughout the stream. Dad carving the prime rib with a carving set I'd never seen before. Marcus popping a bottle of champagne that definitely cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mum laughing at something one of Jessica's kids had said, wearing a dress I'd never seen, with her hair professionally styled, and Sarah, Marcus's fiancée, wearing what was clearly a new outfit, helping serve food like she'd been part of the family for years. 8 place settings, 8 people. Mum, Dad, Jessica, her husband, their 2 kids, Marcus and Sarah. I watched for 20 minutes as my family celebrated the Christmas they'd told me they couldn't afford. The Christmas they'd said was too stressful to plan, the Christmas that was apparently only too much work when it included me. The comments on Jessica's live were full of heart emojis and jealous messages about how perfect everything looked. Someone asked where I was, and Jessica's expression flickered for just a moment before she said, "Oh, Sophia's doing her own thing this year. You know how she is. Super independent. Super independent, like it was my choice. Like I'd chosen to spend Christmas alone while they had the celebration I'd offered to help pay for." I turned off the live stream and sat in my silent apartment, staring at the wall. 26 years of being told I was understanding, mature, independent, easygoing, And I was finally beginning to understand what those words really meant. They meant convenient to exclude. They meant I was the family member they could disappoint without consequences. They meant I'd been trained so well to accept scraps that they didn't even have to throw me scraps anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt something besides sadness about my place in the family. I felt anger, pure, clean anger at the realization that I'd spent decades being grateful for neglect, convinced that being treated as disposable was actually a sign of how mature and independent I was. I picked up my phone instead of from on, and Nannarontai, hence inside edit for a long moment. I could call Mum right now. I could ask why I wasn't invited to the Christmas they'd claimed didn't exist. I could demand an explanation for why my offer to help had been refused, while they clearly had money for lobster and champagne. But I already knew what would happen. Mum would sound hurt and confused. She'd say I was being too sensitive, that I was misunderstanding the situation. She'd turn it around somehow, make me feel guilty for being upset. She'd remind me that I was always so mature and ask why I was acting like this now. Instead, I set my phone aside and ordered my Italian dinner. I opened my bottle of wine, I ate alone at my small dining table and tried to process what I'd learned about my family and about myself. The anger was new, but it felt clean, it felt honest. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to make excuses for them or convince myself that their treatment of me was somehow reasonable. I was done being understanding. I was done being mature beyond my years. I was done being convenient to exclude. I just didn't know yet what that decision was going to cost me, or how much I was finally ready to make them pay for 26 years of making me believe I didn't deserve better. 3 days later, I was about to find out exactly how much my newfound self-respect was worth to them. I spent those 3 days after Christmas in a strange state of clarity I'd never experienced before. The anger from watching Jessica's live stream had settled into something deeper. A cold understanding of exactly how my family operated and where I fit into their equation. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan. I was the one they called when they needed someone reliable, someone who wouldn't ask questions, someone who would say yes without expecting anything in return. I was their emotional and financial insurance policy, kept just close enough to be useful, but never close enough to be truly included. The realization should have been devastating. Instead, it felt like waking up from a 26-year dream where I'd been convinced that being ignored was love, that being excluded was protection, that being taken for granted was family. I was organising the Christmas gifts I'd bought for my family, gifts that would now go to charity, when my phone rang on December 28th. Dad's name flashed on the screen, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the automatic urge to answer immediately. I let it ring twice more before picking up. "Hey, Dad!" "Sophia, how's my favourite daughter doing?" His voice was warm and jovial, the same tone he'd used my entire life when he needed something from me. "I'm fine." I didn't return the enthusiasm, and I could almost hear him recalibrating on the other end of the line. Good. Listen, I hope you had a nice, quiet Christmas. I know Mum mentioned you were doing your own thing this year. My own thing, like I'd chosen to spend Christmas alone. It was fine. That's great, sweetheart. Hey, the reason I'm calling is I've got a bit of a situation I'm hoping you can help me with. And there it was, not how was your Christmas? Not sorry we didn't include you. Not even thank you for the gifts you dropped off at the house yesterday that we haven't acknowledged. just straight to what he needed from me. What kind of situation? I asked, though I already knew this conversation was going to end differently than any conversation we'd ever had before. Well, you know how it is after the holidays. Everything costs so much more than you expect, and Jessica's kids needed some extra things. And Marcus and Sarah's wedding expenses are really adding up. He paused, and I could hear him taking a breath like he was preparing for a big ask. I'm hoping you might be able to help us out with about $3,800. Just temporarily, of course. We'll pay you back as soon as things settle down. $3,800. I sat in my living room looking at the Christmas tree I'd bought myself, small but beautiful, decorated with ornaments I'd chosen carefully, sitting in the corner of my apartment like a symbol of the holiday I'd been excluded from. I thought about the lobster tails on their table, the champagne Marcus had been saving for a special occasion, the professionally styled tree that must have cost more than my monthly rent. $3,800, I repeated. I know it's a lot, Dad said quickly, but you're doing so well with your business, and you've always been so good about helping family when we need it. When had I helped family before? I racked my brain trying to remember a single time they'd asked me for money. Then it hit me. They'd never needed to ask directly. I'd always just offered. The car repair for Jessica 2 years ago when she was struggling as a single mum. Except she wasn't struggling, she just wanted to spend her money on other things. The loan to Marcus for his security deposit when he moved in with Sarah. Money I'd never seen again, and that had never been mentioned since. I thought about every birthday dinner I'd paid for because it was the least I could do for family. Every Christmas, where I'd bought gifts for everyone while receiving nothing in return. Every family emergency where I'd been the one to step up financially while being the last one to know what was actually going on. I'd been funding their lifestyle for years without even realizing it, while being excluded from the benefits of that lifestyle. Dad, I said slowly, help me understand something. Of course, sweetheart. You're asking me for $3,800 to help cover Christmas expenses. But 3 days ago, Mum told me you couldn't afford to have Christmas at all. She said money was too tight for any kind of celebration. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Well, he finally said, you know how your mother is. She worries about money even when things aren't that bad. We managed to pull together a small family dinner. Nothing fancy. I saw Jessica's Instagram live, Dad. Lobster tails and champagne isn't exactly a small family dinner. Another pause, shorter this time. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted into the tone he'd used when I was younger and had questioned something that didn't make sense. Patient but slightly condescending. Sophia, honey, I think you might be misunderstanding the situation. Jessica was probably just making things look more elaborate on social media than they actually were. You know how these young people are with their phones. The gaslighting was so automatic, so smooth, that I almost found myself doubting what I'd seen with my own eyes. Almost. So you're saying Jessica was lying on her live stream? I'm saying social media isn't always reality. Look, the important thing is that we're family, and family helps family when there's a need. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Family helps family. The phrase that had been used to manipulate me for decades, always when they needed something from me, never when I needed something from them. You're right, Dad. Family should help family. I took a deep breath. So help me understand why family didn't help me have a Christmas. Sophia, what are you talking about? You said you wanted to do your own thing this year. No, Dad. Mum told me you couldn't afford Christmas, so I offered to help pay for it. She turned me down and then told me it was better if I just didn't come because you were keeping it simple. Then you had an elaborate dinner for 8 people while I ate alone. Now you're being dramatic. It wasn't elaborate, and you know you're always welcome. Stop. The word came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't soften it. Just stop lying to me. The silence this time felt different, dangerous. Excuse me? I said, stop lying to me. I saw the dinner, Dad. I saw the tree, the decorations, the presents, the professional level feast. I saw 8 place settings for the family that was supposedly too broke to celebrate Christmas. I saw everything you told me you couldn't afford, being enjoyed by everyone except me. Sophia, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude is completely inappropriate. Your mother and I have always what? Always excluded me? Always lied to me? Always made me feel grateful for being ignored? His voice sharpened. That's enough. I don't know what's brought this on, but you're being incredibly hurtful and unfair. We're your parents. We've always done our best for you. Your best for me was making me eat alone on Christmas, while the rest of the family had a celebration you told me didn't exist. We thought you preferred spending the holidays independently. You've always been so mature, so self-sufficient. There it was again. Mature, self-sufficient. The words they'd use to make neglect sound like a gift. Dad, I said, and my voice was steadier than I'd expected it to be. I'm going to say something, and I want you to really listen. I'm listening. I don't fund liars. The silence stretched so long, I checked my phone to make sure we were still connected. What did you just say to me? I don't fund liars. You lied to me about Christmas. You excluded me from a celebration you told me didn't exist. And now you're calling to ask me to pay for that celebration. The answer is no. Sophia Marie Thompson, I am your father, and I will not be spoken to this way. My full name, the nuclear option of my childhood, designed to make me immediately back down and apologize. But I wasn't a child anymore. And I was done being afraid of disappointing people who had never worried about disappointing me. You're right, Dad. You won't be spoken to this way because we're not going to be speaking. What is that supposed to mean? I looked around my apartment, my space that I'd paid for, decorated myself, made into a home without any help from them. I thought about the life I'd built despite their neglect, not because of their support. I thought about the 26 years I'd spent making excuses for people who had never made excuses for me. It means I'm done. I'm done being the family member you can exclude without consequences. I'm done being your backup plan and your ATM machine. I'm done pretending that being ignored is the same as being loved. Sophia, you're being ridiculous. This is just about money. Family works through these things. You're right, it is about money. It's about the fact that you thought you could lie to me, exclude me, hurt me, and then call me 3 days later asking for nearly $4,000 like nothing happened. We didn't exclude you. You're always invited. Dad, stop. Just stop. I can't do this anymore. My finger hovered over the end call button. Lose my number? Sophia, wait. I hung up. Then I blocked his number. Then I blocked Mom's number. Then Jessica's. Then Marcus's. I sat in my living room for a long time after that, waiting to feel regret or sadness or the crushing guilt that had always followed any conflict with my family. Instead, I felt something I'd never associated with my family before: peace. For the first time in my adult life, my phone wasn't going to ring with someone needing something from me. No one was going to guilt me into paying for someone else's problems. No one was going to expect me to be grateful for scraps while they enjoyed the feast. The silence felt like freedom. It took exactly 47 minutes for them to start trying to work around the blocks. Jessica's husband called first. I'd forgotten to block him. "Sophia, it's Mike. Listen, I don't know what's going on with you and your dad, but Jessica is really upset. She says you've blocked everyone." "Hi, Mike. Yes, I have." "Okay, well, she wanted me to call and see if we could talk about this. She says your dad is really hurt." I almost laughed. Dad was hurt. "Mike, I appreciate you calling, but this doesn't involve you. Please tell Jessica that if she wants to talk to me, she can reflect on why I might not want to hear from people who exclude me from family events and then ask me to pay for those events. I don't really understand what happened, but Jessica says it's all a misunderstanding." It's not a misunderstanding. It's 26 years of being treated like I'm not really part of this family. And I'm finally done accepting that treatment. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of family stuff, but Jessica is crying, and she says you've never acted like this before. Of course I'd never acted like this before. I'd been trained not to act like this. I'd been conditioned to accept whatever they gave me and be grateful for it. Mike, I'm going to say this as clearly as I can. For my entire life, I've been the family member who gets excluded from celebrations, ignored on holidays, and called when money is needed. 3 days ago, I watched my family have the Christmas celebration they told me they couldn't afford, while I ate alone. Today, my father called to ask me for $3,800 to pay for that celebration. I'm done with this pattern. Jesus, Sophia, I didn't know about the Christmas thing. Jessica live-streamed it. There was a long pause. What? She live-streamed your Christmas dinner, the one I wasn't invited to because they were too broke to celebrate. Another pause, longer this time. I'm going to be honest with you, Mike finally said. I always wondered why you were never around for family stuff. Jessica always said you preferred to do your own thing. I didn't prefer it, Mike. I was excluded and then told I preferred it. That's really messed up. Yeah, it is. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I know you didn't, but now you do, and I hope you understand why I can't keep participating in this dynamic. I do understand, and I'm not going to try to convince you to change your mind. Thank you. But, Sophia? Jessica is going to keep trying. And your parents, they're really angry. Your mum called Jessica crying, saying you've turned mean, and she doesn't understand what's gotten into you. Of course, I'd turned mean. Not they'd been excluding me for decades. I'd turned mean for finally refusing to accept it. Mike, can I ask you something? Sure. When you and Jessica got married, why wasn't I in the wedding? Another long pause. Jessica said you were too busy with work to be involved in wedding planning. Did anyone ask me if I was too busy? Silence. No, he said finally. No one asked you. Right. Jessica decided I was too busy, probably because having me involved would have meant including me in all the wedding events, treating me like a real sister instead of a convenient afterthought. I'm starting to see the pattern you're talking about. It's not new, Mike. It's been my entire life. The only thing that's new is me finally refusing to accept it. We talked for a few more minutes, and by the end of the call, I could tell Mike was genuinely understanding what had been happening. He promised he wouldn't pressure me to reconcile, and that he'd try to help Jessica understand why I'd made this decision. But the calls didn't stop. Over the next 2 days, I heard from Jessica's best friend, Mum's sister. Marcus's future mother-in-law, and 3 family friends, all calling to tell me that I was breaking Mum's heart and that family is forever and that I needed to be the bigger person. The bigger person. I'd been the bigger person for 26 years. I'd been understanding when they excluded me, gracious when they ignored me, and grateful when they threw me scraps. Being the bigger person had gotten me exactly nowhere except alone on Christmas while they celebrated without me. Each person who called had been told a different version of events. According to Mum's sister, I'd had a breakdown and attacked Dad for no reason. According to Jessica's friend, I was going through something and taking it out on the family. According to Marcus's future mother-in-law, I was jealous of my siblings' success and trying to cause drama. None of them had been told the truth, that I'd been excluded from Christmas and then asked to pay for it 3 days later. It was fascinating in a horrible way to see how quickly they'd mobilized to paint me as the problem. How seamlessly they'd created a narrative where I was the unreasonable one, the mean one, the one causing problems for no good reason. But it was also clarifying, because every single person who called to lecture me about family values and forgiveness had one thing in common. None of them asked what had actually happened. None of them wanted to hear my side of the story. They'd all accepted whatever version they'd been told and decided I was wrong without even knowing what I was supposedly wrong about. This wasn't about reconciliation. This was about getting me back in line, back to my role as the family member who accepts whatever treatment she gets and stays grateful for it. On New Year's Eve, I turned off my phone and spent the evening in my apartment, cooking myself a nice dinner and watching movies I actually wanted to watch. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't spend a holiday worrying about whether I should call family members, whether they were expecting me to check in, whether I was disappointing someone by not being available. At midnight, I made a resolution that felt more like a promise than a hope. I would never again accept being treated as disposable by people who claimed to love me. The silence in my apartment wasn't empty anymore. It was full of possibility, full of space for relationships that might actually include me as a valued participant rather than a convenient resource. I thought about the family I'd lost, but I also thought about the family I might still find. People who would invite me to their celebrations, who would want to spend holidays with me, who wouldn't lie to me and then ask me to fund their lies. For the first time in my life, I was ready to find out what it felt like to be someone's first choice instead of their last resort. The next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, but I felt more rested than I had in years. I was finally free.